All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a brand new Dylan Knows on Saturday, September 24th, 3 months to Christmas Eve. Yeah, I went there. I'll go there again. Yeah, 3 months to Christmas Eve. But we're not here to talk about Christmas Eve. No, we are here to talk about Dylan Knows. Dylan Knows is my weekly video show that I've been doing for over 3 years. 3 years, 158 episodes. I'd see if anyone who has a longer stretch than I do. There might be some podcasters out there, but you know what? That's them. I'm not a podcaster. I am a YouTuber, as it were, because I'm on YouTube Live right now. And hopefully, this is my first solo one that I've done since I had that issue a couple weeks ago with YouTube Live. So hopefully you guys are all, well, there's nobody out there listening to me right now. So hopefully someone is listening to me and can hear me and will pop in eventually. But I guess they're not, because I guess a lot of people don't want to discuss what happened 20 years ago, because a lot of stuff happened 20 years ago. Tonight's episode will be discussing the year 1996. Why? Because it's 20 years ago, and I really had nothing else to talk about today. Also, I'll be talking about some more contemporary stuff as well, some current event stuff, some sports, weddings, movie trailers, stuff like that. And I'm got a ton of stuff about 1996. I mean, I got just talk about history, personal stuff that's been going on, movies, TV shows, music, a touch of sports here and there, because my Baltimore Ravens became the Baltimore Ravens in 1996. So we'll see the Wayback Machine for 20 years in a few minutes, but first let's hit some current events. The first and most important is, no, it really isn't. Brangelina splits up. Brad and Angelina Jolie have split up. Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie, not Brad Jolie. Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie have split up. Okay. It happens. You know, everyone hates seeing Hollywood marriages crumble, but you know what? Hollywood marriages crumble all the time. So everyone thought that this one lasted a little while longer. It didn't. They have a bunch of kids together. I think they have maybe 3 that are literally their kids, meaning they had sex and Angelina got pregnant. And then there was a bunch, I think, that they adopted. So, which is fine. I mean, adoption is just as good as regular birth kids, and they're treated just like regular kids. So more power to them. So now it comes all the backbiting and the yelling and the screaming and the custody battles and the fun stuff like that. And hopefully you guys can still hear me, because my headphones are sort of skewed. Anyway, it's really depressing nobody's watching right now. I at least thought at least one person would be dropping in on me. Oh, well. Que sera, sera. Ah, well. But of course, now things are starting to get a little messy. The child abuse allegations now being tossed about Brad Pitt. Infidelity also being thrown out there, which is technically what ended Brad Pitt's marriage to Jennifer Aniston, but I don't know who was the one who did what. If it was Brad did it again, bad Brad, or was it Angelina who cheated? I don't know. And you know what? Frankly, I really don't care. I decided to bring it up because it is, current events, and a lot of people are talking about it this week. I'm not going to get into the police shootings, because I've covered that enough, and it's not getting any better, and I'm just getting so sick and tired of mentioning it all the time. It needs to be taken care of. It needs to be taken care of quick and fast, or it's going to keep happening, and we don't want it to keep happening. So let's move on from that. But on a brighter side, something interesting happened today. Friend of the show, and who's been on the show a couple times, Miss Brienne, her and her fiance Danny got married today on Facebook Live. Now, that might sound weird to you, but when you hear about their whole setup to this, it's pretty interesting. Both Danny and Brianna are Brianne, excuse me, are Stargate fans. You know, the TV show. I don't know if they're movie fans, but I know they like the TV show at least. And there's a Stargate convention every year, much like a comic convention or any other type of conventions you can think of out there. It's a convention out there. So they met for the first time a few years ago out there, and started dating, falling in love, and so on and so forth. However, the really interesting part is last year's convention, Danny was able to work it out and set it up to propose to Brianne on stage at one of the panels with some of the actors from the show. And it didn't really go viral, but it was caught on videotape and cameras and pictures, and the actors got involved with it. It was really kind of cool. And of course, she said yes. And as I said, it happened during a panel with other Stargate fans and stars of the show and stuff like that. So that's kind of cool. But even cooler was, because that got a lot of attention, the guys and gals who ran the Stargate convention said, hey, why don't you guys get married next year at Stargate convention? You met here. He proposed to you here. Why not get married here? And they thought, I was like, yeah, it's a heck of a good idea. So over the last year, they were prepping for this. And so at this convention, it was set up literally. It's in the schedule. It's in the handbook. Brianne and Danny's wedding. You know, it was an event that was supposed to draw people to come to the Stargate convention. I think it worked. They built a actual wooden Stargate, full size, pretty big one. And they got dressed and they were in costumes and stuff like, well, Brianne was wearing a wedding dress, but you know, the others were in costumes, and they signed the paperwork. So it was legal when they signed the paperwork. So then they just decided to just have this event on stage, basically their own panel for the most part at the Stargate convention. And they decided, let's do it Facebook Live. So they ran it Facebook Live so we could actually sit and watch it. So Dawn and I have both been friends of Brianne and Danny's. We were able to sit down and watch it, and it was a lot of fun. It wasn't very long, and they wrote their own vows, and they did vows, and they were very funny. And we're very, very happy for them. They're celebrating now, and I'm going to try to get her and Danny probably on a future episode of Dylan Knows. Hopefully I can get Bronwyn back on here, and maybe Amy Figaro, and we can cover all the life-changing events that happened in those lives too. Amy Figaro had a son, and Brianne got married. So, and Bronwyn got engaged. So there's a whole lot of life things going on, and maybe that's what we'll do next month. So keep your eye out for that. It should be a very good one. So congratulations to Brianne and Danny. Here's to you. Still no viewers. Well, then I can do this. Excuse me, that was disgusting. I'm a professional. Anywho, covered that. All right. I'm very pumpkin-y today. Had my first full fall weekend. First day of fall was on Thursday. Fall's those who know the show, fall is my favorite season. And it was a nice temperature drop. Had been very, very hot. Later in the week, the first day of fall was like 84, 85 degrees. And then yesterday was like 86 degrees. And then a cold front came through and dropped the temperature down to about 73 today. And the 10 to 12 day forecast that's on my iPhone is looking like it's just going to be in 70s heaven for a long time. So, I got one viewer. Yes, thank you. If you are watching, please let me know if you can hear me. You can tweet me at Holidill, HOLIDILL, and that way I can know who it is also. So it's first day of autumn, or was on Thursday. So today is the first real full cool temperature day, 70, 73 degrees. It's going to be in the 70s from now till forever, as far as I can tell right now, over the next 12 days at least. So huzzah for that. Did some fun fall stuff today. There's a gardening place nearby called Valley View Farms. They have a huge store barn type area, which is mostly Christmas stuff. So, I mean, they have one of the biggest Christmas displays you're ever going to see. But, you know, that's not the only big thing. I mean, and that only starts around September and goes through December, obviously. 3 months to Christmas Eve today. And they usually do a Halloween thing also, but it looks like that's not going to get started till next weekend, which is the first weekend of October. They have a little maze for kids. It's not really hard. It's like a fun little hay bale maze, and they're going to have all kinds of pumpkins and cool fall decorations. They have a haunted hallway, which is scary stuff that you can buy, but also they can show off, like the creatures going, blah, stuff like that. So pretty cool like that. And they had some Halloween decorations up. So we looked around there. My daughter and I looked around there a little bit, and then what do we do? And then we met up with Dawn and Noah, who are selling popcorn for Boy Scouts. And then we went out to Boscov's, which is a store we normally don't have here in the area. It's out in Westminster, to look for something for Noel. Couldn't find it, but a lot of Halloween stuff in there. There was a Spirit Halloween store. We went in there and had a nice little time walking around Boscov's in the mall that it's attached to. So that was a lot of fun. And in fact, the viewer is still watching. Obviously, you can hear me. So yes. What's up? And then what else is fall related? And then we went out to dinner to Bill Bateman's, which isn't really fall related, and it was just getting dark and cool. So it was a nice first weekend of fall. So we're gonna get my daughter's Halloween costume probably tomorrow. So it's gonna be another exciting fall event. So yes, I covered that. Tuesday. I've talked about this before too. There is a great video game. It's on the PS and it's on the Wii U and stuff like that. It's called Lego Dimensions. Basically, it's all types of Lego, pop culture stuff you can play and have them work together. Like you've got characters from the Lego movie, Scooby-Doo, Lord of the Rings, DC superheroes, Jurassic World, Ghostbusters, Ninjago. I'm probably missing a ton of them. But you get the characters and they can all interact with each other, and you are playing this one big game where you're taking on all the Simpsons is another one where you're taking on all these you do these missions stuff like, and there's one overlapping big storyline as well that's going on also. So you've got the big overlapping storyline. Doctor Who is another one that they do, and then you have these little mini missions, and you can play any character you want. Wizard of Oz is another one too. So you can play here. So you can have the Wicked Witch of the West teaming up with the Ninth Doctor and Peter Venkman of the Ghostbusters. You can have Slimer and the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man taking on Gollum and Chris Pratt's character from Jurassic World, and you have them work together. You can have Scooby-Doo and Shaggy taking on Bane and Batman and the Joker and Harley. It's great. You can have them all interact and fight and team up and do stuff. It's really, really cool. Well, it was a big thing last year. I think last year around this time is when Lego Dimensions first came out. So to celebrate its 1-year anniversary, they're releasing a whole bunch of new sets, and they're making them bigger and better, and they're expanding the game even more. And Tuesday is the first batch of them, and you're bringing in some more pop culture events. You're going to have your first Harry Potter set. So Harry Potter and Voldemort are going to be out on Tuesday. B.A. Barabas from the A-Team is going to be there. Who else is there? Oh, Adventure Time is going to have some stuff in there. I think the female Ghostbusters are going to be coming out on Tuesday also. But then you've got all these other ones coming up also. You've got Gremlins coming up. You've got E.T. You've got Knight Rider. You got Mission Impossible. Mission Impossible is going to be out. The Tom Cruise version is going to be out also this week. And you're going to be able to have new dimensions you can play in and new gameplay and new designs. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them is going to be coming out with more stuff soon. And then they'll be doing more rounds of the characters we had. The Lego Batman movie is going to have some new characters rolling through. So, and it's all done in the Lego format. So it's really, really kind of cool. You have to build the characters and build the vehicles, and then you put them on the little pad, and then you can play them on the video game. It's really quite cool. So Tuesday, the newest waves after it's been 4 or 5 months since the last wave came out. So now you got these new ones coming out. Should be a blast, especially the Harry Potter and Voldemort one. So So good. Should be a lot of fun. For those who follow my Twitter and know me personally, I'm going to get a little personal. I'm going to get a little personal all day today because, you know, it's my show. My stepdad, Roger, a couple weeks ago, he fell. He's been having some. He had a couple years ago, he had an issue with cancer and lungs problems and stuff like that, and he had to be in rehab for about a month to take care of this. He was very weak, and now he's on oxygen, and he's a lot weaker than he has been, but he's been slowly making a little bit of progress here and there, but not a lot. Anyway, he's weak, and he's getting older and stuff like that. A couple weeks ago, he fell, and he broke his collarbone, a rib, one of his fingers, and the worst part is his femur. We all thought it was his hip at first, but it turned out to be his femur was broken and one of his legs. So he had to have surgery to get the femur repaired, and the rest of the stuff is just going to have to repair itself because the bones up here and the rib bones and stuff like that, the finger bones, they'll heal on their own eventually. So a lot of people were concerned, and I appreciate your concern for all that. He's decided that he wants to live. So he's been working his ass off to fight his way back, and now he's moved from the ICU, intensive care unit, to the same rehab facility he was in 2 years ago, and he's learning how to walk again. He's getting his strength back, and he's learning to breathe with not as much oxygen as before. So he's doing really, really well. I need to update with my mom. I haven't talked to her in a couple of days, see how things are going. But she'd been saying, things are progressing pretty well. And if something had gone downhill, she'd call and let me know. So keep going, Roger. You're doing good. Everyone's out there praying for you and helping you out. So thanks everybody out there for that. Let's see. I talked about Brienne and Danny getting married. Yes, next Friday, I believe. Yes, September 30th. Luke Cage, the newest Marvel Netflix series, will be coming out on Netflix. Binge watch it. If you binge watch Jessica Jones, you binge watch 2 seasons of Daredevil, you'll want to binge watch this. It's the same sort of style. And I think now that Stranger Things is off, I might be able to binge watch this with my wife. She might be interested in that. So it should be a lot of fun to check that out. So that's next Friday. I talked about this a little in one of my comic shows, I think last week, but I wanted to bring it up here anyway. I never knew this really existed before. There are cat cosplayers, cats that get dressed up in superhero costumes, stuff like that, and people take pictures of them. It shouldn't surprise me since dogs get dressed up all the time, but it's fairly popular. There's actually somebody on Twitter who followed me when I discussed this. So apparently there's a Twitter page due to cat cosplay. But the reason why I brought it up is because Valiant Comics, which does X-O Manowar and Archer and Armstrong and Rye and some other really cool Harbinger, Faith, stuff like that. They're going to be doing some cat cosplay variants in a few months, and I might just have to buy them. Ninjak is another one, Bloodshot, and they showed some pictures of them, and they're so funny and they're so cute. Cats dressed up in the costumes of their characters. I might end up having to get those. So if you want to see cat cosplay, look for these Valiant books in a couple months. I'll let more people know about it in the future. But if you're a comic book fan, definitely try to get I think it's in the most recent previews. Definitely order them in so your store will have plenty of them for you. And I'm probably going to buy all of them because they're just so cute. I don't really read a lot of the Valiant books, but you know what? I'm just going to get them just for the covers alone. Why not? I bought it for worse stuff, you know? All right. One more little bit here. Yeah, I'm not going to talk about that. And I'm probably not going to talk about that till later. If I need more time, I'll probably talk about this later because I don't think people want to hear about my local sports team. There were 2 trailers that just came out this past week for films that a couple weeks ago I did my fall preview show here on Dylan Knows. And they were ones that seemed interesting to me, but I didn't know really a lot about it. Well, now I saw the trailers. It's like, you know, it's made it even more like I want to see these. This fall, winter coming up actually has a lot more movies out that I want to see than this summer, to be honest. I mean, Doctor Strange, Fantastic Beasts, Star Wars Rogue One. and Mona, which is the new Disney movie. Miss Peregrine comes out on Friday, also next Friday, which is Tim Burton's new film. I want to see that also. So there's a lot of stuff I want to come out. These two movies I knew absolutely nothing about and didn't even know about them. I think I heard a little bit about Passengers when I read a story about them, and I'll talk about that in a second. And I didn't really know much about Collateral Beauty until I read about it in the Entertainment Weekly Fall Preview. I'll do it in the order I saw them in. Collateral Beauty was the first one. Collateral Beauty, when I discussed it in my fall preview show, they were extraordinarily vague about what the story's about because they didn't want to ruin the surprise. Well, we get a little bit of a better idea of what it's about in the trailer when they released the trailer. Basically, it stars Will Smith and a cadre of other really good actors: Kate Winslet, Helen Mirren, Edward Norton, a few others as well. I can't think of whoever else it is right now, top of my head. But basically, shoot, my mind is gone. Will Smith. Sorry, it took me for a second. I was like, woof, I'm getting tired. That's the sickness. I was sick, so I've been sick. I've had a sinus infection, so you got to bear with me if my mind isn't fully 100%. Will Smith plays a father who I think loses his daughter or his family or whatever and really has nothing. So he starts writing letters to time and fate and death and just blasting them for ruining his life and stuff like that. So apparently the embodiment of these things, time and death and love and stuff like that, are starting to appear to him during this Christmas period. It's a Christmas movie, basically, and try to help him through his grief. And I'm sure there's more to it than that, but they're not really revealing too much about it. But it looks beautiful. The acting looks phenomenal. Looks like it could be potential Oscar-worthy, some Oscar-worthy stuff. I mean, it's an ensemble piece, so I don't know. Will Smith, I guess, carries it, so he might be able to get nominated for Best Actor if it gets well enough, or it could be nominated for Best Picture or Best Director, or whatever. Maybe Helen Mirren might get Best Supporting Actress because she's Helen Mirren, you know. But that just seems to be the general idea of what the movie's about. You know, he's been writing letters to these different fates and feelings and time and love and stuff like that, and just releasing everything in his head, and the embodiment of them is coming to visit him. And so is it inside his head? Is he going crazy? Are they actually visiting him? You know, kind of like a Scrooge type of thing. And it is around Christmas time. You got to love Christmas movies that way. So I think Collateral Beauty comes out the same day as Rogue One. So if you decide you don't want to see Rogue One in week one because you think it's going to be too crowded, Collateral Beauty might be right up your alley to check it out. It might be right next door to Rogue One, you know. Check it out. I think I'm going to check it out because I think it looks really good. If you want to see a trailer, go to your search engine, type in Collateral Beauty trailer, and it should pop up. It's like a 2.5 minute, 3 minute trailer. Looks really, really good. This next movie, everybody is starting to say this. It's starting to get a lot of rumblings right now. This movie might actually beat Star Wars Rogue One's box office. It's Passengers. And I saw the trailer, and I absolutely fell in love with the trailer. And the reason why I think it's going to be, and a lot of people are thinking it's going to be hugely popular, and I just lost my last viewer. Oh, well. I guess it's 9:30 almost. So like, screw this guy. I've heard enough. He's not talking about 1996. I'm going to get there. Don't worry. Or maybe they're going to check Collateral Beauty out first, and they'll come back. We'll see. Anyway, Passengers. The main reason why I think this is going to do extraordinarily well is because it stars Chris Pratt and Jennifer Lawrence. And really, that's about it. Two of the most popular actors and actresses of our time right now. Both are huge box office draws right now. And the theme is sort of an amalgam of, let's see, The Martian, 2001, Before Sunrise, Gravity, Titanic, and The Shining. It's all sort of a an amalgam of all this stuff. And that's just, this trailer is absolutely stunningly gorgeous. The basic premise of it is it's a spaceship. It's making a journey to the star, the closest star, I think. And it's going to take like 219 years to get there. So using the old sci-fi trope of putting everybody in cryogenic sleep and freeze so that they're not going to age and they'll be able to sleep and their bodies won't break down over the 219-year trip it takes to get to the star. Then they'll wake themselves up. They'll get woken up automatically a few weeks before they arrive at their thing, so they can prep and do stuff like that. However, Chris Pratt gets woken up in the middle of cryosleep, and just Chris Pratt gets woken up in the middle of cryosleep about 52 years into their journey. So they still got a long way to go. So he was released early, and then he starts, suffering from, the solitary loneliness type of thing, that sort of like that Shining 2001 type of thing going on, the Martian type of thing. But then discovers Jennifer Lawrence has also been released also, and they're the only two that have been released. And so Jennifer Lawrence is Jennifer Lawrence. She's gorgeous. Chris Pratt, he's a handsome man. So the two of them are going to try to figure out why they were released early. But at the same time, they're going to start, as these romantic movies go, they start falling in love with each other. But then you start, from what we've seen from the trailer, a bunch of other stuff goes on. Like they discover that they were awoken because there's a problem with the ship, and they might be the only two who can solve it. There's also, it looks like there's a robotic bartender who's going to sort of become evil, much like the 2001 HAL, or in The Shining with the ghost bartender, stuff like that. So it's going to be a little bit of a amalgamation of all that, and the romantic part with them getting to know each other is like a Before Sunrise type of storyline as well, and the gravity with the outer space and stuff like that. So it looks really, really good. So it's sci-fi. It's romance. It's got Jennifer Lawrence. It's got Chris Pratt. It's got action, adventure, robots, gorgeous sets, gorgeous actors and actresses. And the trailer is just gorgeous itself. It's funny, it's cute, and it's scary and action-packed all at the same time. So go to your search engine, type in Passengers trailer. Check that out definitely also, because I really think I'm going to see it. I really think it's going to make a lot of money too. Do I actually think it might make more than Rogue One? Yeah, actually, I think it might make more than Rogue One, actually, which is saying something, isn't it? I mean, it comes out the same month, I think, but not necessarily the same week. But should be interesting anyway. So we'll see. But I want to see it, and that's all that really matters, isn't it? So, talked a good half hour about everything else. Do I really want to get into that? Yes, I do, because I don't want to, but I just need to get this, and I got a minute anyway to kill before I start my 1996 hour-and-a-half rant. The election's coming up. Everyone knows about the election. This election cycle has been one of the absolute worst ones. It seems like it was going on forever. It started like last August, like 2015. So it's been going on for over a year now, and we still have a few months away before we actually are going to vote for president. And just, and I've talked about this a million times, but what got me today was, Joss Whedon released a video that stars a lot of the actors he's worked with before, including Robert Downey Jr., Scarlett Johansson, Neil Patrick Harris, Nathan Fillion, Mark Ruffalo. There's a whole bunch of other actors and actresses in there that he's pulled up, and they were all, for trying to get Hillary Clinton elected president. And there was, the message they're saying is that your vote counts and blah, blah, like that. There was a idiotic, sarcastic Twitter Nazi guy who can, if face to face, would never say stuff like this, but use the anonymousness of Twitter and the computer to make statements like, your vote really, Joss Whedon making a video saying that your vote counts when your vote doesn't count, and that got me thinking, is like, so wait, are you saying that all votes don't count? Does that include yours, asshole? One who's saying that they're saying your vote's going to count, it's not going to count. Are you saying that yours isn't going to count either, or just theirs aren't going to count because they're not voting for the guy you want to win. Think before you speak, asshole. And that's all I'm going to say about that, because I really don't want to get into it. And I don't want to get into the Orioles. But I wrote a lot about it, but no, I'm not going to, because no one cares about my local sports team. I'm just hoping they're winning now. I don't know. But let's talk about 1996. So that's it for current time. So we're going to travel back in time now, 1996. 1996, I was 23 years old. I had just graduated college in 1995, and I was still living at home. I didn't have a car. Didn't have a girlfriend. Didn't really have a job. Now, late 1995, I discovered a bagel shop was opening literally 5 minutes from my house. And I could that's walking. I didn't have a car, so I was either would have to get a job in Towson, which entailed me hopping a bus up to Towson, or a job somewhere on a bus line, because there was a bus line at the top of my street, or a place I could walk to. Hence this bagel shop that's opening, 5 minutes from my house. So I go in, I apply. I really had no experience in like a restaurant type of business. I worked at cafeteria in college, and that's really about it. I mean, and I worked in a grocery store, but that's not really the same thing. This bagel shop was, obviously sold bagels, sold cappuccinos, and also sodas and other stuff as well. And you could get dozen bagels, or you could get bagel sandwiches, or you could get bagels and cream cheese, bagels and lox, whatever you want. So I started off as being someone who would pull dozens of bagels for people, or I would make sandwiches, whatever. And very quickly, within probably a couple months, I got promoted to bagel baker, and I did that job for about 2 years. But that's getting ahead of myself. So 1995, end of 1995, around December, I get a job. I apply for the job. I get the job. We do some training. The place isn't going to open until like the 2nd of January. I figure, why not give it some time to get the inventory in, get it set up, organized, because they were refurbishing the interior of this old building and stuff like that, and get it prepped and get us trained on how to make cappuccinos and how to make bagel sandwiches and how to make stuff like that. So 1996 hits. I start working at the bagel shop full time, as I said, in December, but the shop opens literally like January 2nd. And business is okay. We got very lucky. A massive blizzard hit literally about 3 or 4 days after we opened. And my boss had a Jeep, so he could travel through the snow. I was within walking distance, so I could get to the house or get to the store, and other people were going to be able to make their ways there. So while everything else was shut down, our bagel shop was the only thing that was open, and it was pretty good. We've only been open for about 3 or 4 days, and it's a good way to get attention. So people who are out and about walking after the blizzard, just seeing what's going on, discover, hey, bagel shop's open, has coffee also. So let's go inside. Let's go inside the bagel shop. We go inside the bagel shop. It's brand new. We, offer them good bagels, good coffee, and it gets packed. The place is packed. Channel 2, TV station, one of the, it was ABC. It's ABC now. I don't know if it was ABC in 96. But that was right down the street. So they heard about this place being open. So they came and they did a remote from our bagel shop, because we were literally the only store open in this whole area. I mean, there's a lot of stores in this area. We were the only one that was open. So they came, they did interviews with the owners and stuff like that. And so we got the exposure of, hey, if you're in the Stoneleigh area, Rogers Forge, Stoneleigh, Annesley area, hey, why don't you walk over to Charm City Bagels? They're open. They'll be open, get some bagels, get out of the house, get some coffee, whatever. So I did that. So that's what my job was. Basically all of 96. I stayed there till, it wasn't a couple of years. It was till around Halloween of 97. So I stayed for about 1.5 years. But being a bagel baker is not an easy job. I mean, it's an easy job. But we open at 6 a.m. because, hey, most people get their bagels to go for breakfast. Very rarely eat them for dinner, so it's mostly for breakfast. You had to be open early for people who were leaving for work and stuff like that. So we'd open at 6 a.m., which meant that bagel bakers had to be there at 3 a.m. because we had like 30 different types of bagels. We had to make at least a dozen of all the bagels. Obviously, had to make more of the plains, the cinnamon raisins, the blueberries, the sesame, the really, really popular ones. You had to make more than that. Now, we had a bank of 2, 4, 6, 8, 12 pizza ovens. And basically, you could put, I think, 3 pans. It's either 2 or 3 pans of bagels. It might only have been 2. Regardless, so I was only making, and you could put a dozen bagels on a pan. So we were making 24 dozen bagels every time. And it takes literally about 10 minutes to do the bagels. So we had them in the freezer. One of the things we did before we left for the night, we set up the stuff for the next day. So we would do a bunch of bagels, a whole rack full of about 2 or 3 runs of bagels, all the kinds, stuff like that. And we put them in the refrigerator so they could thaw in the refrigerator overnight. And then we would pull them out of the refrigerator in the morning, throw them into our boiling cauldron of water, which would help loosen it up and unfreeze anything that was still frozen or cold. And then re-put them back out onto the trays, stick them in the oven, cook them for 10 minutes. You'd have to spray them literally with a hose every 5 minutes, something like that, just to get the tops crusty. And that's how you cook bagels. So during this time, while they're cooking, we're making, we're pulling new ones and we're setting up dozens like that. And you got to be fast too, because you only have 1 dozen plain bagels. Someone's going to say, I want a dozen plain bagels. Guess what? That's all your plain bagels. You're done. So the next person is like, I wanted plain bagels too. Guess what? You don't have them. So you had to make a bunch of plain bagels first. So we always used to make like 12 dozen plain bagels first, and then we'd hit some of the other ones in that time frame. But as I said, there's not much we could do. It took about 10 minutes to cook. We couldn't speed up the physics of heating stuff up, and it took time, and you had to spray them too. And some of them were straight up frozen, so we'd keep them in the bubbling cauldron of water for a longer period of time. So we did that. So get up at 3 a.m. kind of sucks ass, because then I got to the bagel shop at 3:30 in the morning, had to unlock the door, and then basically run across the shop to turn off the alarm system, because we weren't going to come in through the back. We were coming in through the front. I forget why we weren't coming through the back. Oh, well, it doesn't matter. The front was, I guess, easier to get through. And then once we turned the alarm off, we would make sure the door was locked, and then we'd go in the back and we'd just start cooking bagels. That was really about it. That was the cool part, though. I mean, the bad part was you had to get up at 3:30 in the morning, which means you had to go to bed like at 8 o'clock if you wanted to get a good night's sleep. But the good part was from about 3:30 to about 5:30, for about 2 hours, there was nobody else there. It was just me. And that was great. I could play my music. I could snitch. We had some leftover bagels. I would snitch some of those and make myself a breakfast sandwich, grab a Yoo-Hoo bottle from the freezer and not have to pay for it, or soda, whatever. And it was nice, just cooking and listening to music and prepping stuff. And, it was quiet. And then people would come in, and then, after doing it for a while, you had a specific, you knew how many bagels, we had to write down how many bagels we did every time. So like plain, we did, hashtag 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 dozen, cinnamon raisin did 5 dozen, whatever. And that'd be for like Monday and then Tuesday. And then we would have all these on record so that we could look back. It's like, okay, let me project where I think we're going to be. I'll project that, according to last week, we did, 10 dozen of plain bagels. So I'm going to do 10 dozen now and see if that'll be enough for the whole rest of the day, because it was last week. That might always be the case. Sometimes you make too much. Sometimes you make not enough. It depends on people coming. But usually it was right around that time. So it was a little bit easier to gain, an idea of how many you can make. And that way you were able to leave early and have enough bagels for the rest of the day, because they closed at like 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock or something like that. They weren't going to stay open that much later because, hey, nobody eats bagels for dinner, We stayed open for lunch in case any of the local businesses wanted to come in for lunch. They very rarely did. Breakfast was always the big time. But so then that meant that on the slower days, like Mondays, Fridays, and Tuesdays, I would be done by 10:30. That's 7 hours. Maybe it might even push it to 11, 11:30, depending. But I would be done usually before noon, my shift for the day. So I'd have the whole rest of the afternoon free. Now, you'd think, okay, well, then you go to bed at 8 o'clock and get up at 3 o'clock. You must be tired. You get a nap. Now, at this time, you're already jazzed up. You've been moving around. You've been doing bagels and a lot of stuff. So you're awake and you're wide awake like that. So you don't want to go to sleep usually. So 1996 was the year that I've never done. It's the only time I've ever done this in my life, and I'm probably never going to do it again. I saw 51 movies in the movie theater. And I was this close to seeing 52. The last week of December, there was a bunch of movies I wanted to see, and I was trying to force myself, you got to go. You got to hit the big 52, so you can say, hey, I saw a movie a week for a whole year. It just never worked for me. But I saw 51 movies in the movie theater in 1996. Now, to be fair, 4 of those 51 was Independence Day. I saw it 4 times in the movie theater because that was the big movie that came out in 96. But what was great was that, Friday was always a slow day. Believe it or not, it was a slow day for us at the bagel shop because everybody's waiting for the weekend, really. So Saturday and Sunday would be crazy busy, but Friday, not so much. So I was usually done by 10:30 on Fridays. And so most of the movie theaters don't open till 11, 12 o'clock-ish usually when the first showings are. So what I would do is I read the paper and I said, okay, what movie's coming out this week? Is it going to be up at Towson? Because I would go to Towson because it was the easiest one to go to. I could walk to Towson if I needed to. It took me half an hour, but I could walk if I wanted to. Or I could take the bus. Just hop on the bus, drive up there, and go up there. Now, in 96, the movie theater there was eight theaters, and it was on top of a Borders bookstore, which is my favorite bookstore at the time because it was 1, 2, 3 stories high. It had a huge CD store at the bottom. I mean, huge CD store. I mean, they had everything you can imagine under the sun, and it was huge. And then you'd go up to the main level. There'd be the magazines and the graphic novels and sci-fi books and romance books and stuff like that, big print books in the magazines. And you go up to the next level and you get to, the other styles of books and children's books and stuff like that. And it was a really neat place, and, glass windows all around so you can see out the Towson, and just a lot of fun. And I love Borders. I loved that Borders so much. I would go up there pretty much every day and just wander around for hours, and it was just so great. And then on these Fridays, I would go and see what movies are playing at Towson. Obviously, there's only 8 theaters. They'd get maybe one or usually only about 1 or 2 movies might come out on a Friday, but sometimes 4 or 5 might. And there were other movie theaters, I could go to if I needed to on the bus line. They just took a little bit longer, York Ridge or Timonium. It just took a longer trip to get out there, and I couldn't walk to it. I would have to take the bus. Whereas with Towson, if the buses were running late or I didn't want to wait for the bus, I could keep walking and walk home and make it in time. So usually I would stay at Towson, and I would see what movies are coming out at Towson that week, and see if I want to go see anything. And if I did, I would go. And if there were like 2 movies that were coming out that I wanted to see, I would watch one, and then I would leave and then come back in and get tickets for the next show and watch that one. So sometimes I watched 2 in a row. And that was great. Sometimes I went into theaters I was by myself. Sometimes they were, fully packed, because it's easy during like the fall and spring to go see a movie Friday matinee, because there's not going to be a lot of people because they're at work or they're at school. So you're not going to have a lot of people in the movie theater. So it was always fun too, because I don't think I ever went to a movie that we were fully crowded during those times. Now, summer was a different story because summer people had more free time to do, and they were the bigger movies were coming out that time. So there were more people in the theaters then. But most of the time, not a lot of people. I liked the Towson Theater also. It wasn't fantastic, but it was fun. It was great, and it felt like it was mine. and it was fun. So that was what the majority of my entertainment was. Is it past 10 o'clock yet? Not yet. A little bit personal note also. One of the ladies at the bagel shop and I went on a what's the term? Friends with benefits summer where we were basically screwing each other pretty much every day. We weren't dating, just having sex. So I'm not going to get any more about that. You're probably like, ew, we don't want to know about this, Dylan. That's fine. That's fine. But that happened in 96. It had to happen. I had to mention it because we're talking about my personal stuff right now, and then we'll get to other stuff as well. It was also, I talked about my stepdad, Roger. He became my stepdad in 1996. My mom and my stepdad got married August 3rd, 1996. So they've been married for 20 years now, which is actually funny because they've been married longer than my mom was married to my dad. So my mom was married to my dad 18 years. So it's kind of interesting. So combined, my mom's been married to somebody for 38 years. So more power to her. So we had that. And that was basically my life. So I lived at home. Basically, what I would do is, it really sucked because I had to go to bed at 8 o'clock. So I really couldn't do anything. So as I said, I would do stuff during the day. If I didn't want to go to the movies, if I didn't want to go to Town Center, I didn't want to go to Borders, and I wasn't screwing, I would watch movies, TV shows that I recorded, stuff like that. So I spent a lot of time watching TV and watching movies that are on video and also watching TV shows that I had recorded and just never got around to started watching those. So I did do other stuff, but that's really all that I did. That was my life in 96. Get up at 3 a.m, work, go to movies, go to Towson, screw, go to Borders, or just stay home and read comics, watch movies, DVDs, or watch TV shows. And then there were also times where, because I was old enough, I was still living at home, but my mom gave me a lot of freedom. My weekends, I would usually work during the weekends because Saturday and Sunday were our busiest time. So my weekend would be like Tuesday and Wednesday, or Wednesday and Thursday, or sometimes Thursday and Friday. Sometimes also I would have also. I always tried to get 2 days back to back, so I'd have a weekend. But it'd have to be during the week though. And I forget his name. We had another baker who was Egyptian. Really cool guy. I liked him, and he introduced me to Egyptian music, and that's really kind of cool stuff too. And then we worked together on the weekends. So when you only need one baker during the week, so like 2 days that I was working, is that right? Like Monday and Tuesday I would work. Wednesday and Thursday, and he had off. Wednesday and Thursday, he would work and I had off. Did we share? Did we work? We might have bounced off where we each had maybe 3 days. I'm trying to remember. It's been 20 years. I don't remember. Damn. I just remember there were times where I had 2 days in a row. It was at my weekend. So what I would do then is I would pay for a cab, and I'd go down to the train station here in Baltimore, hop a train, go down to DC, get a hotel, and just walk around DC by myself for a couple of days. And I think at that time I was hoping maybe I could try to score with some chicks down there, because that's all I was thinking about, sex. And my sexual adventures was only during the summer. So, we had fall, spring, and the fall, winter, spring, and fall, where I was looking for action maybe, but because I'm too shy, I would just end up just walking around the mall, or go to Arlington National Cemetery, or just hang out even in the hotel room, and just relax, and go to the zoo and stuff like down there. But I would take like weekend trips to DC and spend time down there. So that was, as I said, that was basically my life in 1996. I mean, I worked at the bagel shop all year. As I said, I didn't leave it till October 97. I was a bagel baker for most of that year, probably starting in maybe Marchish. So for 2 months, I was a bagel maker where I would make sandwiches and pull dozens and stuff like that. But then I became a bagel baker. And I was living at home, as I said, and going to bed at 8 o'clock, getting up at 3 o'clock, you really couldn't have much of a social life because everybody wants to go out 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night. I'm sleeping because I had to get up early, and nobody is available during the day because they're all working. So it was kind of a weird thing. But I had my movies, I had my TV shows, I had the bookstore, I had the mall, and I had the movie theater. And the Center Theater was also another place I would go to also, which was down the street from my mom's house, or from my house where I grew up. I'd go down there too, depending on what movie. If there wasn't any movies I wanted to see at Towson, I could walk down the Center if they were showing a movie I wanted to see, or if there was a movie that was playing at both Towson and the Center, and I'd rather see it at the Senator, which is one of those old-fashioned 1950s, 60s movie theater, giant screen, curtains, stuff like that. I would do that. So, there was a Blockbuster down there, Blockbuster Video, so I'd go down there and look around there as well. So that was my life. So that being said, that was my life. And the show's over. No, it isn't. But again, why 1996? It was 20 years ago. That's basically why. I think what I'm going to do is sometime in December, I'll probably do another episode like this, but focus on 2006, because my daughter is going to be turning 10 this year, and she was born in 2006. So I can discuss stuff that was going on in 2006, a difference of 10 years, What changed from 1996 to 2006? Coming up December, Dylan knows. So stay tuned. So 1996, should I do the history first? Yeah, let's do the history first, because that's going to be the longest part. I got the history, just little bits of history here. Births and deaths, film. I'm going to do my top 20 films in 1996. Obviously, I saw 51 of them, so I can really get into them. 1996 in television and in music. And some cool stuff. Which reminds me, Dylan, why were you playing the Macarena at the beginning of the show? Well, you'll find out, won't you? Anyway, so let's start. January, as I already said, January 1996. Bagel Shop opened. We got hit with a blizzard. They say it was 30.7 inches. And it socked up the East Coast for a long time. And I do remember it. It was, I think we had like two. We had like a mini snowfall, and then we had this big giant one on top of it. So we had like a 5-incher, and then this 30-incher came, and that was the one, or rather it was 30 inches first, and like another 5 came afterwards. So as I said, that put the Bagel Shop on the map, and that's how we became successful for the first year, 96. We were very successful because of that blizzard. Overseas, the Chechnyan Russians were in a heated battle, which would last all year. Actually, I think there was a ceasefire showed up sometime later in the year. All this information I got from Wikipedia. If you want to see other stuff that happened in 1996 that I'm not going to mention, just type 1996 in the search engine. It'll give you everything you want to know about 1996. If you want to find out about movies and music, you have to say 1996 in movies, 1996 in music, so on and so forth like that. The Amber Alert. Everybody knows about the Amber Alert, which is an alert where a child or children are kidnapped. It's an alert that goes through, it's really weird. Your cell phones now, if you're not careful, they are attached to the Amber Alert system, and they emit a high-pitched squeal if an Amber Alert has been announced in your area. And then, of course, the street signs that you see above the highways will say Amber Alert, stuff like that. And you might hear it on TV. You might see a little Amber Alert thing at the bottom. What is Amber Alert? Amber Alert basically is an alert saying a child or children have been kidnapped. This is the information we have. It was in a car, a silver Ford Escort 2006, license plate ABC 123, something like that. And so if you're on if you happen to be out and about and you happen to see that car, call the police and let them know, hey, I'm driving down 695. It just blew right past me, and they'll pinpoint 695 near Route 40, and they'll come Route 40, and they'll be able to circle around it and try to catch it. The Amber Alert apparently started in 1996, in January 1996. And it was created due to the terrible crime of a 9-year-old girl named Amber, who was murdered. And that hits me right here because my daughter's 9 years old, and I don't ever want to consider anything bad happening to my children. And this must have just been absolutely awful for the family. But in the end, it created this Amber Alert system that has been fairly successful. They also have one, it's like a grailer or something like that. So if an elderly person gets kidnapped or injured or something like that, it also pops up as well. So that's January. February. Chess computer Deep Blue defeats world chess champion Garry Kasparov in a match, which was the first time that an AI defeated a human. That's kind of scary shit because, AIs, if they start beating humans, it's not going to be long before Terminator happens, and they start taking over and we become slaves. But then they had a rematch that same month, and Kasparov won. So they had a bunch of them, and it's sort of been an even draw. It's sort of like a 500. They've won the same amount that they've lost. So we'll see what happens. Pokemon Go is a big thing now. Well, back in February 1996, Pokemon Red and Blue was introduced in Japan. It was the first role-playing video game of the Pokemon series, and so eventually it came out and stuff like that. Alanis Morissette won a Grammy for Jagged Little Pill, which is a great album, by the way. Despite the anti-male sentiment of some of the songs on there, it's still a damn good album. It deserved winning the best album, or album of the year, I should say, is what they call it. And she, at the time, was the age of 21, was the youngest singer to win album of the year until Taylor Swift did it in 2010. So she held that record for a long time. So good job, Alanis. In March, the 81-day long standoff between the anti-government Freemen and the federal officers in Montana. A lot of shit happened in Montana this year, 1996. That was one of them. And Braveheart wins Best Picture at the Academy Awards. So good for you, Braveheart. April, as I said, a lot of other stuff happened. It's just I only hit things of interest to me. There's a lot of other stuff. I mean, there's a ton of other stuff that happened. There were lots of, this year, as I was going through, there's a ton of plane crashes. And I don't think I've ever heard of this many plane crashes in a year before. There was at least 10 to 12 during the year. At least once a month, there was a plane crash in 1996. And it was, a lot of them were awful. And I will mention, in fact, I'm mentioning one now. April, a Boeing 737, a military jet carrying 35 people, crashes in Croatia, killing all aboard, including, at the time, Secretary of Commerce Ron Brown. That was the first time a sitting government official was killed in an airplane crash. Let's see. What is that? Oh, that's right. I want to talk about this because it's kind of interesting. This happened in Australia. A gunman killed 35 people, wounded 23 in Tasmania, Australia. And it was in the Port Arthur portion of Tasmania. It was the worst, I think, gun attack, a mass shooting in Australia in history. And I'll tell you, in a couple months when we get there, this is a huge event, led to an even huger event in Australia. The Unabomber, Ted Kaczynski, was caught in Montana. See, I told you, Montana's crazy this year. And Major League Soccer, MLS, kicked off in 1996 with the San Jose Clash beating the DC United 1-0. So I think MLS is still around. I don't think it's as popular. I don't think it ever got to be as popular as they were expecting it to be, but still, it had a good run. It's still running, I think, just not as mentioned as much. May. A lot of shit happened in Mount Everest in May of 1996. The worst one was a storm suddenly appeared Mount Everest when there were a number of teams climbing it at the time, killed 8 of them. And it killed 8 people on, I think it's still the worst death totals. Storm, I think they've even written books about it. This big storm that hit in 1996, killing 8 people. And then that same month, there were a couple other storms that came. 4 more people died. So Mount Everest was a death trap in 1996, especially in May 1996. Here we go. As I was telling you about the Port Arthur attack, with 35 gunmen killed 35 people, wounded 23 in Tasmania, Australia, led to Australia introducing a ban on possession of atomic and semi-automatic rifles in response to that. So basically, they're saying you can't own semi-automatics or automatic rifles. And to be honest, that's kind of what we need here in America. I know you gun nuts out there and be like, no, we need our guns. It's against our Second Amendment. Yeah, it is. Maybe, not really. But I mean, do you really need an automatic weapon to protect yourself when a simple handgun would do? Do you not just want to shoot one person? You want to totally turn them into meat? Is that what you want to do? Because that's what an automatic weapon does. It shoots 30 bullets at one time, basically, where you just need one bullet to shoot one person. If someone's invading your house, bang, shoot them in the head, the chest, or incapacitate them. Shoot them in the balls, shoot them in the leg, shoot them in the neck, whatever. Have them fall down. You can shoot them again if you want to. Do you really need to pull out your semi-automatic and go boo, 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 and fill this guy with lead? No, you really don't. It's overkill. And Australia gets it. They are I think the ban is still in place now too. So you can't own automatic or semi-automatic weapons in Australia because of a mass shooting. Oh my God. Someone actually banned something because of a mass shooting? Holy shit. Airplane crash again. Value Jet 592 crashes in the Everglades. After an oxygen canister caught fire, killed 110 people. As I said, once a month at least in 96, I was doing my research, airplane crashes. May continued. Romer versus Evans, I think, was a Supreme Court ruling. There was a amendment that was brought up in the Colorado government, which prevented protected status for homosexuals and bisexuals. And that's not fair. So it went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court overturned the ban on protection of homosexuals and bisexuals and put them under the same protection that regular people get as well. So that's what happened with that. That's kind of the basis of that. It was kind of confusing for me, so I think that's the gist of it. So needless to say, it was the first legislation towards gay people and bisexual people that ever went through the Supreme Court, and it was in Colorado, which is hugely progressive state now. In 1913, Liberty Head nickel became the first coin to hit 1 million at auction. And Boris Yeltsin works with Chechen rebels to call for a ceasefire. So as I said, at the beginning of the year, they started a Chechen-Russian war, and Yeltsin called for a ceasefire and ended it basically in May. June, the Nintendo 64 was released in Japan. Soon it came its way over to America, probably by Christmas time, and became a huge hit. Journalist Veronica Guerin was shot and killed outside Dublin. There was also a lot of IRA stuff going on, Irish Republic Army stuff going on in 96 as well. And I think the Guerin shooting was a basis of a story in movies and stuff like that. A new Turkey government came in June, and the Constitution of Ukraine was signed into law in June. Well, it doesn't matter anymore because fucking Putin has taken over Ukraine, thanks to Donald Trump's help as well. Asshole. July, big month for the United States because the Summer Olympics were in Atlanta, 1996. My dad, my Aunt Kathy lives in Atlanta, so my dad and my I think it was my stepmom at the time. No, she wasn't my stepmom yet, but I think he was with my current stepmom, Yvonne, and I don't think he was with my first stepmom, Mary Ann. Anyway, my dad went down to see the Olympics in Atlanta, and he saw his sister also, my Aunt Kathy. He's a big track and field guy, so he went and saw all the track and field events, so he was able to go down there and get into that. So some Olympics happened in 1996. We also know what happened Luckily, my dad wasn't anywhere near it. He heard about it, but he wasn't anywhere near it when this happened. At Olympic Park, there was a bombing that killed one person, injured 111. So homegrown terrorism. It was a dude similar to the guys who were out in Montana in their standoff with the federal government. The Menendez brothers. Everyone knows about the Menendez brothers. They were sentenced to life in prison. I think they were charged with killing their parents, and that became a big to-do tabloid thingamajigger. Well, they finally got sentenced to life in prison. Hotmail was launched commercially. I still use Hotmail, so huzzah. Dolly the sheep became the first cloned mammal. So 96 was a big year for science also. Hurricane Bertha, I believe, hits North Carolina. $270 million worth of damage, but no lives were lost, I think. Oh, hey, look at this. TWA Flight 800 explodes off the coast of Long Island, New York. 230 dead. Another airplane crash. This one hit a little closer, and I don't remember this because I wasn't living out here. I live in Reisterstown now. At this time in 96, as I said, I was living in the Towson, Stoneleigh, Rogers Forge, Annesley area, which is closer to Baltimore City than Reisterstown is. Reisterstown is actually closer to Pennsylvania. But Westminster is a city about 10 minutes from here. And I don't remember this because at the time I could care less about Westminster or Reisterstown because I didn't live there. I lived in Towson. That's all I really knew. But apparently, and this was in Wikipedia too, which is where I got this information, an F3 tornado, which is a pretty massive big one, hit 5 miles outside of the Westminster city center, which I was at today. 3 people were injured, and that was it. And it was $5 million in damage. I don't remember a tornado hitting that close, but hell, it was right up the street from us. So it hasn't happened since because I don't remember any tornadoes hitting in the Westminster or Reisterstown area. But the fact that one did hit was an F3 also, which is, right there in the middle. It's not a small one. It's not a heavy one. It's right there in the middle. It's a scary one. That's a scary thought. August. Meteorite thought to be from Mars was confirmed to have ancient life forms in it. So basically they're saying, guess what? There was life on Mars. They think this meteorite came from Mars. It had these fossils of animals in it, little microscopic animals with still life. And, hey, look, there's life on Mars. And it became a big deal. So much so that Robert Zemeckis, when he directed Contact with Jodie Foster, a couple of years later, he took the news conference that President Clinton had about this and Forrest Gumped it into the movie so that you'd have Jodie Foster up there and Matthew McConaughey up there with him and stuff like that as he was talking about there being life out there because that's what Contact was about. The Ramones played their last show. Bob Dole was nominated for president, Republican president. Remember, it was a presidential election in 96 also. It was Bob Dole versus Bill Clinton. 3-year-old boy falls into a gorilla enclosure. A female gorilla named Binti stayed with her. It wasn't Harambe, where Harambe, looked like he was going to attack the kid and they shot and killed Harambe, and now it's a big deal on Twitter sports now. Binti actually, being female, she sat with the boy and protected him until people could come and save him. So good for you, Binti. Also in August, Queen Elizabeth II issued a letter patent, whatever that is, which ordered that former wives of royals, meaning Diana and Fergie, would be stripped of their Royal Highness titles. So they wouldn't be known as Royal Highnesses anymore because they were getting divorced from their royal husbands. They would still be, I guess, something considered part of the royal family, but they would not be addressed as Royal Highness anymore. They'd just be, hey, Diana, or hey, Fergie. Clinton was officially nominated for Democratic president. An attempt to raise a portion of the Titanic occurred, failed, which led to James Cameron making his Titanic movie, came out in 1997. The Big 12 Conference in college was inaugurated with a football game between Kansas State versus Texas Tech. So Big 12 is still around nowadays. That leads into September. My Baltimore Ravens. Yes, I know the history. The Cleveland Browns moved to Baltimore after the 1995 season and began playing as the Baltimore Ravens in 1996. I could go off on a tangent about that. There was a lot more to it than, you just stole, a team from Cleveland. There's a lot more to it than that. I guarantee it. Regardless, my football team started in 1996. I was at one of the games that year. They lost it. Obviously, they went 4-12 that year. But, give it 4 years. The year 2000, they won the Super Bowl. So, hey, we're all good. Operation Desert, not Storm, Desert something or other in Iraq. So there was a Iraq operation that happened in 1996. A Hurricane Fran, hits North Carolina again. So North Carolina, just recovering from Bertha, gets hit by another hurricane. This one, however, was a lot worse than Bertha. This was 150-mile-per-hour winds, $3 billion in damage, not 407 million, $3 billion in damage, and 27 people were killed. Whereas with Bertha, I don't think anybody was killed, but this Fran, they were. And I'm trying to remember if this was the same hurricane. What if this was 96? There was a time in 96, maybe not 96 when I worked. It could have been 97 when I think about it. But there was a hurricane. The remnants came up to Baltimore. So we got hit with a lot of wind and a lot of rain. And I think that was August, not September. Yes, I don't think it was. It was probably 97. But regardless, I was trying to close the windows in my house because the wind was picking up and the rain was starting to come down because it's the remnants of a hurricane. My hand went through the glass. I sliced it pretty good, sliced my palm here, sliced some parts down here. I had to go to the doctor after the storm went through and got it taken care of. So I don't think it was this one. I think it was 97. Anyone convicted of this was a ruling, a law was passed. Anyone convicted of a misdemeanor offense about domestic violence cannot obtain or possess guns. So we did something to not allow people to get guns. Not what Australia did, but hey, people who were convicted of a misdemeanor of domestic violence and abuse were not allowed to have guns just in case they decide to escalate it and kill their spouse. So October, New Zealand again. Australia, they keep doing cool stuff. New Zealand, so it's not really Australia, it's New Zealand. New Zealand agrees to pay the Maori population, which is like basically they're Native Americans, Native Australians, I should say, $130 million in compensation for the loss of their land between the years of 1844 and 1864. So in recompense, they gave them $130 million to say, hey, we're sorry we took your land. Wish we'd do that for the Indians, but you know what? We're not going to. Ugh. The Fox News Channel debuts. Ugh. And the O.J. Simpson civil trial start. Now, this wasn't anything. The regular trial was in 94, which was when he was acquitted of. The civil trial, he actually lost and actually had to pay a big amount of money to the Goldman family and Nicole Brown Simpson as well, her family as well. And basically meant that he was, he wasn't charged with the crime, but there was enough evidence there that he was the reason why they were dead. And so he lost that court case. And that was like the beginning of a spiral for OJ. That was in October. November, Clinton beats Dole, obviously. Category 4 cyclone hits India. 2,000 people dead. 95% of their crops destroyed. So that was a really awful event that happened in India in November. The Mars Global Surveyor was launched in November 96. I think it's still out there, global surveying. Mother Teresa, now Saint Teresa, became an honorary American citizen in November. Space Shuttle Columbia, largest mission of the longest mission of the Space Shuttle program was in November. Ice storm hits the East Coast, kills 26. I don't really remember that one too much. I guess not. And at the same time, around that same storm, a massive windstorm hit Florida with 90 mile per hour winds. So it wasn't a hurricane, it was just a windstorm. And the Sands Hotel, which had been in Vegas for a long time, was destroyed to make room for the new Venetian Hotel, which I don't know if it's even still there anymore. Finally, in December, the worst thing about it, JonBenet Ramsey, the 8-year-old beauty queen, was found murdered in her house. The case has still not been solved. They just did something on CBS for the 20th anniversary, obviously, which is weird. She'd be like 27 years old now. That's crazy. She's still alive. And Guatemala ends their 36-year-old civil war. So that's your history for 1996. Who was born in 1996? Well, you know what? Not a lot of people, because these are all actors and actresses and sports people who are now 20 years old. So Sophie Turner is the biggest one of all these people. Sophie Turner is in Game of Thrones. So she was born in 1996. Abigail Breslin, who's an actress who's been in a bunch of stuff also. She was born in 1996. Tom Holland, your new Spider-Man, was born in 1996. Zendaya, your new probably Mary Jane, we'll find out next year, was also born in 96. Haley Steinfeld. I've heard of her, but I don't know what she's really known for. And Dylan Minnette, who was in, I had to say, it's a Dylan, was just in that movie that came out this year, Don't Look, or something like Don't Breathe, or something like that. The one where the young thieves break into the blind man's house, but the blind man is like a sadistic psycho or something like that. He was also in the really good Goosebumps movie. Believe it or not, it's a really good live action movie with Jack Black, and I highly recommend it. You guys should check it out next month for October. It's a good, fun family film. There were a lot of deaths in 1996, not quite as intense as this year's death list, but this is in order of when they died. So the first person died in January, the last person died in December. So it's in that order, basically. I don't have the months. I'm just telling you, these are the most famous people who died in 1996. Don Simpson, a producer, did the Top Gun movies and Beverly Hills Cop and all those action-type films. Jerry Siegel, co-creator of Superman, died in 96. All these people died in 96. I'm not going to say it after all. Gene Kelly, dancer, Singing in the Rain. Audrey Meadows, famous TV actress. Martin Balsam, really great character actor. McLean Stevenson from MASH and a few other things as well. He passed away. Hang S. Nor. He's been in a bunch of movies. I loved him in My Life, which is a great film with Michael Keaton and Nicole Kidman. He plays a holistic doctor trying to help Michael Keaton cure his cancer. It's kind of it's a neat film. Minnie Pearl. George Burns, God himself, died in 1996. Greer Garson. This one's for Jessica. John Pertwee, the third Doctor, the Doctor Who. He died in 1996. Timothy Leary, poet and crazy dude. Ray Combs, who hosted Family Feud for a long time and was in a few movies, was in Overboard and a few other things as well. Ella Fitzgerald, poor Ella. Mel Allen, how about that? Sportscaster. That was his catchphrase. Claudette Colbert. Tupac Shakur supposedly died. There's a conspiracy theory that he's still alive. Now Tupac was a Baltimore dude, so I gotta pour 40 for my homie. Spiro Agnew, another Marylander. He was vice president under Richard Nixon. He was the governor of Maryland. He's the only governor of Maryland who ever made it to a vice presidency. He's also a crook. Was up there with Richard Nixon. Dorothy Lamour. Jason Bernard, a really great character actor. He was in Herman's Head. You might remembered him from While You Were Sleeping. That was one of the last movies he made in 1995 with Sandra Bullock. He was in that. He was a character actor, so he's all over there. Maury Amsterdam, Alger Hiss, Mark Leonard, live long and prosper. Sarek, Spock's father. Tiny Tim, tiptoe through the tulips, passed away in 96. Pete Rozelle, former commissioner of the NFL. Died in 1996. Mary Leakey, who I think was an archaeologist, is pretty famous. She died. Marcello Mastroianni, a famous Italian actor. Carl Sagan, billions and billions of years ago, and Contact, which we talked about earlier, he passed away. Margaret Ray, artist on Curious George books. And we ended with Jack Nance, who is a character actor who was in the Batman movie in 1989 with Jack Nicholson. A bunch of other stuff. He was in City Slickers too. He played Curly. Now we get to film. 1996 in film. I got film, TV, music, and then I'm gone. And I got 40 minutes. This should work out perfectly. Hey, I'm good, except I have no viewers, so nobody's watching. Anyway, anywho, 1996 in film was a pretty interesting year. As I said, I saw 51 films in the movie theater, and I'm going to try to see if I can remember which. They all sort of blend together. There are certain ones I remember seeing in movie theaters, and there are ones like, did I see the movie theater or did I wait? I don't know. But the top grossing films, and then I'll do my top 20, and then I'll do any other ones out there. The top grossing films in 1996, ones that made the most money in 1996. Excuse me. At number 10 was Arnold Schwarzenegger's latest film in 1996, Eraser, which he starred with Vanessa Williams. It's okay. Nothing great. Number 9, everyone knows this one. Show me the money! Show me the money! Yeah! Cuba Gooding Jr. and Mr. Tom Cruise and Renee Zellweger, right? She was in that one too. That was number 9. Number 8, Eddie Murphy doing The Nutty Professor. Now, I don't know what to say about The Nutty Professor. It was a highly popular film. I think I saw that one in the movie theater. Eddie played his whole family, and he's fat and thin, Eddie, and lots of sex jokes, and it was weird. Anyway, it was a remake and did pretty good. Number 10, 9, 8, number 7, Mel Gibson in Ron Howard's Ransom with Gary Sinise as well. That's the one with what is her name? Oh shit! Great actress who's played opposite like every. Oh well, I can't think of who it is. Anyway, Ransom basically is about a Mel Gibson. I think is like a millionaire or something like that, whose son gets kidnapped, and the kidnappers want a ransom of like $1 million, something like that, or his son is going to die. But instead, he decides to turn the table on them, and he puts a hit out on the kidnappers. He says, "I'll pay anyone $1 million to kill the kidnappers," and then ends up, hunting them down. Also, it's a Mel Gibson film, so it's directed by Ron Howard, so it's up there pretty good. Let's see, that's 10, 9, 8, 7. Number 6, the live-action version of 101 Dalmatians with the gloriously evil Glenn Close as Cruella de Vil. Fantastic performance by Glenn Close. And live-action version of 101 Dalmatians. Speaking of Disney, number 5, Hunchback of Notre Dame, which surprised me that it's so high up in the most highest grossing, because it's one of those Disney movies that not a lot of people talk about. It's actually not a bad one. I saw that one in the movie theater also, I think. But it's not your normal Disney film. It's not a princess film, basically, because it focuses on the Hunchback. And instead of it being the depressing ending that Victor Hugo wrote, they turned into a Disneyfied ending, which to me is fine. You had, I think it was Demi Moore was the voice of the seductress, and you have Kevin Kline as the hero, and I want to say Jeremy Irons, but I don't think it's Jeremy Irons. I think it was a character actor who did the voice of the Cardinal, who was that kind of creepy ass dude. But Tom Hulce, who played Mozart and Amadeus, was the voice of the Hunchback and the singing voice of it. Jason Alexander was one of the voices of his friends, which was the gargoyles, which gave him advice and stuff like that. But it's a fun film. It's an interesting film. It's a different film. It's a bit darker than a lot of Disney films are, and I think it's actually underrated. It's actually a pretty good film, some pretty good music, but it is kind of creepy, and it doesn't quite follow the Disney princess formula, because there's not really a princess in it, because Demi Moore's character is not really a princess. She's a gypsy. It's a gypsy. Back away, gypsy. Borat, if I was doing that. So that was number 5. Number 4, probably the only Michael Bay movie that I actually enjoy somewhat, The Rock, Nicolas Cage, Sean Connery, Ed Harris. Terrorist takeover, Alcatraz threatened to blow up San Francisco, so Nicolas Cage finds the only guy who escaped Alcatraz, that's Sean Connery, and they sneak back in. I love the theory that the Sean Connery character in this is actually James Bond in prison. He was imprisoned and escaped, because he acts a lot like Bond in this one. Speaking of Mission Impossible, as I said, the new Lego Dimensions stuff is coming out on Tuesday. One of the new products they'll be doing a actual level for and characters is Tom Cruise's Mission Impossible. So that came out number 3. So Tom Cruise has got 2 of the top films of 1996. Mission Impossible is an okay film. It's convoluted a little bit, and obviously, it's interesting about the Mission Impossible movies is they've gotten better as you've gotten into the later series. I mean, 2 wasn't that great. 3 was okay. 4 was really good. 5 was pretty good. Now 6 is going to be coming out. And similar to like the Fast and Furious, the first couple were kind of crappy, and then around 4 or 5 they started picking up, and now they're amazing. Or I've never seen them, but they're making a shit ton of money. Number 2, great film, great disaster film, and I think this is basically was the first film that movie company said, you know what, summer movies usually start around the end of Memorial Day. Let's change that, and it's the beginning of May. So Twister, number 2 on the list, was the first movie I think that came out in early May and became a huge blockbuster. And so everybody's like, first weekend of May, that's the beginning of summer. And then the superhero movie came out and said, hey, that's perfect for Free Comic Book Day. We're going to take that over, and we're going to have that now. So they've been in control of that for all. But Twister was the first film, I think, really to start the summer season off in early May. And Twister's a great film. It's cheesy as all hell, but it's fun. It's a lot of fun. And you still eminently quote it, and it's still a lot of fun to watch. And of course, number 1, what else would it be? Independence Day was number 1. I saw it 4 times in the movie theater. Opening day, the opening day I saw it, the film snapped in the middle of it, and we had to wait like 10 minutes for them to reattach it, and then we missed about a 5-minute segment of it. So I had to go back and see it again 3 other times. So those are the top grossing films of 1996. Here's my top 20. And then I'll give you a quick rundown of all the other films that came out in 1996 that are all 20 years old. Because a lot of them are good. These are my top 20. My number 20 years, top 20, that's why I'm doing it. Number 20 is Phenomenon. John Travolta, Kira Sedgwick. John Travolta, good old guy. Everyone loves him. Small town. Goes out of a bar one night, looks up in the sky, and gets zapped by something. Pretty soon, he's able to control stuff, psychic powers, able to move things with his mind, but it's slowly killing him. It's a fun, kind of depressing film, but it's still interesting. Primal Fear, number 19, introduced Edward Norton to the world. Edward Norton is a Columbia, Maryland guy. Columbia, apparently this month, in Money Magazine, was named the best city in America of their size. So Columbia's good. My sister-in-law lives there, and my nephews, and my brother-in-law. Primal Fear is a great film. Richard Gere, Laura Linney, Edward Norton, Andre Braugher. It's a twisty little thriller from Gregory Hillbilt. He made a couple really good ones. Fallen's another good one, and there's another good one that he did. Frequency. And Primal Fear is basically Richard Gere is kind of the cocky lawyer type who takes a job defending what appears to be kind of a slow of mind kid who is accused of killing a priest. And we learn various things. The priest sexually abused him, and periodically he would have these fits of psychosis in the middle of court cases. Edward Norton would. And they were able to do some digging and stuff like that. And so Richard Gere was able to, get him off on a technicality and put him in a psycho hospital. And then there's a killer twist ending, which I'm not gonna spoil for you. Just trust me. This introduced Edward Norton to the world, and he hasn't looked back since. And he's from Columbia, Maryland. I'm so proud. Number 18 is Fargo. Yeah, don't you know? Everybody knows Fargo. It's not higher on my list because it's an interesting film, but there's little bits and pieces of it. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Great cast, interesting story, and a different take on things, and became a popular TV show on FX, which I want to get caught up on because I got the first season on DVD. Second season I have to get that now. Third season will be out, I think, later this year. So check that out. Number 17 is a film probably nobody's ever heard of. It's called Alaska. Basically, it's about a broody young boy and his sister, whose dad is like a pilot in Alaska, and they live in Alaska, and he doesn't want to be in Alaska. Alaska's in the middle of nowhere and wants to be in the big city and stuff like that. But he's stuck in this little godforsaken little town in Alaska. And his dad is this pilot who plane crashes in the mountains, and there's like a storm coming or something like that. So no one wants to go and try to save him. So the son and his sister go on an adventure to save their dad, and he sort of reconnects with Alaska itself, and Alaska helps him and gets him to become like a part of Alaska and become a true member of Alaska. So it's a fun little film. No really major stars in it, and I think it was shot in Alaska, or at least a good approximation of it. Number 16 is Muppet Treasure Island. Now, the reason why I like this one is because it's got one of my favorite Tim Curry performances. Tim Curry plays Long John Silver in this, and he does Tim Curry. I mean, he's acting against the Muppets. The Muppets are great anyway, as it were, but Tim Curry does a fantastic Long John Silver. And I really like, there's a sequence near the end where Long John Silver knows that he's beaten, and he's going away. He's trying to get Tom, or whatever the main character, to come join him, because he likes the kid, and he's like trying to get him to come with him, and he's like, no, I want to stay here. And just the look of pain and sadness on Tim Curry's face when he's rejected by this boy that he helped and liked and stuff like that is great acting by Tim Curry, and it's just phenomenal. It's the Muppets, so it's a good one like that. Number 15 is Peter Jackson's last film before he got involved in Middle Earth. This is The Frighteners. It was also Michael J. Fox's last really major movie role, because he was filming in New Zealand, which is where Peter Jackson was from, and he was far away from his family. And it was just a bad film experience. And there was one sequence where, and it made it into the film too, I think, where his character is trying to jump over a car, and his foot gets hit by it. He broke his foot, so they had to stop filming for a little bit. So he was stuck in New Zealand until his foot healed, and he missed his family and missed life. And his family was sending him, TV shows that to cheer him up and while away the time, because there's not much you can do in New Zealand, I guess. And he realized that, movies are great and all that, but maybe it's time that I went back to television. And that's when he came up with Spin City, which I'll get to in a little bit also. But The Frighteners itself is a interesting film. It's a horror comedy. Michael J. Fox plays a psychic medium, basically, who can see dead people. And he uses that to con people. He befriends two ghosts, and he has them go into somebody's house and make a ruckus and stuff like that. And then they find his card, and they call him as a ghost exorciser. Exorcises ghosts, goes in, and he uses a whole bunch of little stuff to exorcise the ghosts. And since they're working with him, the ghosts leave, and then he charges them an arm and a leg and makes money that way. But he can see dead people. And in this small town, he's starting to notice a Grim Reaper-esque character has been killing people, and only he can see it. He's wearing the black robe and the scythe and stuff like that. And so he's got to try to figure out a way to stop it. And that's the premise of the film. But it loses a little bit because there's a character played by Jeffrey, I can't think of his last name. But he's a guy who's worked with Peter Jackson before and was in Star Trek a bunch of times as well. And his character, Jeffrey Combs, and his character is just totally bizarre FBI agent who had been deep undercover in cults and stuff like that, and became mind messed up because of those cults. And it's a weird, bizarre film. Kind of creepy, kind of fun to watch around Halloween. Great Danny Elfman score. And Michael J. Fox is great in it as well. Number 14 is one of those ideas that I wish I would have come up with, but I didn't. a guy by the name of Quentin Tarantino came up with the idea. Even though I'm not the biggest Quentin fan, he came up with this idea, but instead of directing it himself, he said, hey, Robert Rodriguez, who was born on June 20th, I must say, same day as I was. Not the same year. He's a little bit older than I am, but same day we share a birthday. Hey, Robert Rodriguez, do you want to make this movie? And Robert Rodriguez is like, hell yeah, I'd like to make this movie. And it's called From Dusk Till Dawn. Basic premise is vampire strip club. It was the first big film for George Clooney and really was the one that got him onto the map as being a possible leading man. He's got one more on my list, which I'll talk about in a second. But this is basically was the stuff that cemented him as being a leading man and started his career off as being a leading man, which has gone on now for 20 years. But this was the one film that did that. He and Quentin actually has a big role in the film. They play brothers who are going around and they rob people. And after their latest robbery, they have decided that they're going to lie low for a little bit. So they're going to meet up with a contact they have in Mexico, which is going to take them to this town in Mexico where they can retire. But they can't get there. They're just going to have to spend the night. They're just going to hang out overnight at a strip club that he knows about. He's seen it on the road. Their Mexican contact, they've seen it on the road. Said, hey, it's a strip club. Go hang out there, get drunk, get laid, do whatever the fuck you want to, do some blow, whatever, lie low. Cops really don't go there. They don't look there. Just go there and we'll meet you in the morning. So they carjack a Winnebago, which is run by Harvey Keitel, who's a former priest whose wife is dead, and he's got two kids. One is played by Juliette Lewis, and the other is an Asian kid because the wife was Asian. So Quentin and George Clooney hijack them and make their way into Mexico, make their way to the Titty Twister, as they call it, which is the strip club. So they go to a strip club thing. It's just going to be a strip club, They hang out with the people they carjacked, and they're going to let them go at the end of the night and stuff like that, and so on and so forth, and stuff like that. So they get there, but then they realize, hey, there's something going on here. It turns out that the strippers and a lot of people who work at the bar are vampires, and they lure people into the bar, and then they feed on them. But now you've got two, criminals and a former priest and a bunch of other lowlifes who are now doing a last stand against these vampires in this strip club. And that's basically what it is. A vampire strip club. It's a really neat story, and it's a really good Halloween-esque movie. Another film that cemented George Clooney as a leading man is my number 13, One Fine Day. Came out in December. From Dusk Till Dawn was like September, I think. I saw that one in the movie theater. I think I saw One Fine Day in the movie theater. I saw The Frighteners in the movie theater. I saw Alaska in the movie theater. Saw Fargo in the movie theater. Saw Primal Fear. Saw Phenomenon. So I didn't see Muppet Treasure Island until later, but it's still one of my favorites. One Fine Day is a romantic comedy. George Clooney, he did horror action already with From Dusk Till Dawn. Now he's doing romantic comedy with Michelle Pfeiffer, which is, Michelle Pfeiffer's hot in this one. They both play like single parents. George Clooney's ex-wife is getting remarried, and because she's getting remarried, she has to drop off their daughter to spend time with him while she's getting married. And he's like, yeah, it's fine. But he's a reporter, and he's like a lackadaisical bachelor type of person. Michelle Pfeiffer is a hardworking single mom whose ex-husband is a guitarist for hire, basically, for bands. So he's out on tour all the time. So they got divorced because of that. And it's one horrible day where everything just goes wrong, and the two of them meet, and their kids kind of know each other. And they have to figure out a way, because they both have big things going on, but they can't have their kids with them. So they work out a deal where Michelle Pfeiffer watches both kids for a little bit, and then George Clooney will watch both kids for a little bit after he does his thing, so she can do her thing. And it's just a whole bunch of things. So it just leads to one big adventure in one day, where Michelle Pfeiffer and George Clooney slowly fall in love while they are throwing insults and stuff back and forth together. So it's your typical romantic comedy. It's fun, it's cute, it's mindless. It's a lot of fun, though. And George Clooney is very charming, and Michelle Pfeiffer is gorgeous, though she's a bit too, but that's her character, though. My number 12 is another underrated film I think a lot of people don't really talk about, but should. and it shows Michael Keaton as a fantastic actor. It's Multiplicity. It's a comedy directed by Harold Ramis, coming off of Groundhog Day. He made this film. And it stars Michael Keaton and Andie MacDowell. But it's the Michael Keaton show, basically. Michael Keaton is a full-on business guy, works hard at his job, but doesn't spend a lot of time with his family because he's working hard to keep his place. And there's people on all sides who are trying to take his job from him, stuff like that. So he's got to work harder to protect them, but he's starting to get a little burnt out. So he discovers a person who has perfected cloning humans, giving them full memory, their full memories and everything like that. A perfect clone of a person with their memories intact and everything like that. So Michael Keaton decides, hey, you know what? I can maybe clone myself, send that person to work, and then I can hang out with my family because my family is starting to get mad at me and I might lose my wife and my kids and stuff like that. So he clones himself and he sends that clone to work where he's able to work 24/7 basically because he doesn't need to go home because Michael Keaton's already there. And he can't go home because it's like, why are there two Michael Keatons? But he does still go home and he has them living in a treehouse in the backyard. However, Michael Keaton decided, you know what? Dealing with the kids isn't as great as I thought it would be. I want some me time. So what he decides to do then, he goes back and he clones himself again. And this time, his second clone, he makes him the absolute perfect house husband. Polite, loving, takes care of kids, knows how to cook, cleans the house, does all the familial jobs, while the other one is the hard driving, tough as nails clone who bloodthirsty and works his ass off. So real Michael Keaton goes off and does what he wants to do, goes and does things he's never been able to do, like scuba dive and ride a boat and drive a boat or whatever you want to call it. Then, while he's off doing his adventures, his wife and family they believe the second clone is Michael Keaton changed, so they're not missing him. But the clones decide, you know what? We need somebody to help us. So they clone them. One of the clones goes in and clones themselves. But because you're making a copy of a copy, it's not going to be perfect. And the copy they come with is, how do I say it nicely, is mildly retarded. Can't talk, bangs into things, just is a complete mess. And he's the one that just sort of hangs around and does stuff. And it's Michael Keaton playing all the roles. And he does a fantastic job. And Harold Ramis, a great director on it. And Andie MacDowell is luminous in it. So that's my number 12. Number 11 is another one that's underrated. That Thing You Do. It was Tom Hanks's directorial debut, and he also co-stars in it. He also wrote the music for it as well. The basic premise is it's basically the Beatles story if the Beatles were a one-hit wonder. Basically, a small band in Erie, Pennsylvania, hit it big with a rock song, and they end up having a #1 record in the country. So they're a one-hit wonder. So they get thrown through the whirlwind of doing music festivals and then going out to California, being in movies and doing concerts on TV and stuff like that. And gradually you see how the success, the rising to success quickly causes problems between the cast, the cast members. So, Liv Tyler, Tom Everett Scott, Steve Zahn, a few other actors I can't think of their names right now, who are just Jonathan Sheck, Ethan Embry are the band members. Tom Hanks, of course, is in it, and then Tom Hanks, because he directed, he's able to get a bunch of his buddies in there. So there's cameos by Kevin, not Spacey, Kevin, the other Kevin. I can't think of the other Kevin's name. Kevin something or other. His old bosom buddy partner's in it. His wife is in it. His son is in it. Jonathan Demme's in it. Gedde Watanabe, who he worked with in Gung Ho, is in, not Gung Ho, in Volunteers is in it also. And just lots of cameos and lots of great stuff. And it's a great film. It's a fun film. And Tom Hanks wrote the music, the songs, including the popular song. And it's a fun, kick-in song. It's a great CD also. And Tom Hanks wrote the songs for it and plays a great role as Mr. White, the guy who's their manager. And he's not your typical nice Tom Hanks role. He plays, he does kind of a nice Tom Hanks, but he plays a manager, and he's really good at it too. So that's my number 11. Number 10 is a great action film a lot of people don't really know about either. It's called Broken Arrow. It was John Woo's first American film, I think. Stars John Travolta and Christian Slater. And it's about John Travolta and Christian Slater are pilots who pilot the stealth bombers. And John Travolta has come up with a plan that he's going to hold the government hostage with a nuclear bomb because he's done doing their dirty work and wants to retire rich. And so he's going to try to hold them hostage and get a bunch of money and then get away scot-free. But Christian Slater has to go up against him, try to stop him. So it's a fun, great film, action film, a really good John Woo film. Did really good money, so it led to Face Off, which was another really good John Woo movie that came out a couple of years later. Number 9 is Mr. Holland's Opus, also came out in '96. Great film with Richard Dreyfuss, Glenn Headley, Olympia Dukakis. And it basically follows a music teacher from his first day of work at a school as a music teacher through his last day of retirement 30 years later. And you watch as the times change from the 60s to the 90s, basically. And lots of different things happen in his life. And, he didn't start off to want to be a teacher. He's just doing it because he figures he could get summers off and just make some money while he and his wife started their family, got a house, had kids, stuff like that. He was going to use the summer to write his opus, which was a big musical piece. But being a teacher is a lot more than just being at school during the school year. So he eventually discovers that being a teacher is a full-time job and has to sort of push his opus away when he can and work on it when he can. And then they get pregnant and they have a son, and the son is deaf, which is killer because he's Richard Dreyfuss loves music and wants to share music with his deaf son. And he's not used to that. So he's got to get himself, adjusted, his attitude adjusted towards his deaf son while pushing his wife away also. So it's a really good dramatic film. And it's a lot of fun too. It's a lot more fun than you think it would be. William H. Macy's in it also. He's great in it too. And it's a great film. It really is. It's Mr. Holland's Opus. Another good soundtrack for that one. Number 8. Wood. Beavis and Butthead Do America. The Beavis and Butthead cartoon was on MTV, fairly popular. So two slackers who watch music videos and would make comments and jokes and snark them. Well, then Mike Judge decided, hey, why don't we make a full-length movie with them? So he sends Beavis and Butthead on a journey through America. With vocal talents of Demi Moore, Bruce Willis, and a bunch of other people, Robert Stack as well. And it's a great fun animated cartoon. Number 7 is Mars Attacks, Tim Burton's great film based on the pulp 1950s card series about the big-headed aliens. Jerry Fletcher and I talked about this in depth when we did a Tim Burton countdown last month. So we're not going to deal with that. But Mars Attacks is a great film. Great Danny Elfman score. Great cast, ensemble cast. Jack Nicholson, Glenn Close, Michael J. Fox, Pierce Brosnan. What's her name? Geez, my mind is just like, it'll come to me eventually. Jim Brown, Danny DeVito. I can't think of any other ones. There's other actresses in it that Martin Short's in it also. Ugh, God, I hate that my mind isn't working right. Anyway, Mars Attacks, great film. Number 6 is Fly Away Home, a great family drama film. It stars Jeff Daniels, Anna Paquin, and the basic premise of it is Anna Paquin lives in Australia with her mother. Her father's a Canadian, lives in Canada. Their family's divorced, and he lives up in Canada, and she lives with her mom in Australia, loves her mother and all that stuff. Her mother dies in a car accident, and Anna Paquin's character survives, and they call her dad. Her dad comes down from Canada to Australia to take custody of her and bring her up to Canada to live because it's her dad, you know. And so you have the mother, the daughter father thing where they haven't seen each other for a while. They got to reconnect. And Jeff Daniels is he's a artist. He's also someone who is for conservancy of nature and stuff like that. But there are people who are destroying the land around them to build condos and stuff like that. So he's trying to stop them. And one day, some builders come and they destroy a goose's nest. The mother's killed, but there's a bunch of eggs that are still there, and they're going to die. Anna Paquin stumbles upon them and says, I can't let them die. So she hatches them. There's about 20 of these geese, baby geese. And she has to teach them to, to survive, how to fly and how to survive and feed them. And eventually they have to teach them how to migrate or they're going to die. So Jeff Daniels comes up with the idea of creating flying machines, and because he's an amateur pilot and he teaches his daughter how to fly, and then they're going to fly the migrational path from Canada down to North Carolina, so that they know once they do it once, they'll know to do it every year at that time. It's all the stuff that leads up to that. So it's a great film, tearjerker, dramatic, fun, sweet family film, good for all ages, and cute little geese. They're so cute. And the storyline is just great, and especially great around this time because the geese are going to start coming down through Maryland and stuff like that, because that's what they do. We get a ton of, in fact, a lot of the geese don't make it down North Carolina. They say, hey, Maryland's cool. I'm going to hang out around Maryland. So we get a ton of geese, and we're going to start seeing a ton of them coming down here. And we've already seen them already. A lot of them live here year round. But we're going to get a lot more. So you're going to start hearing geese more and more as October starts coming next weekend and stuff like that. We're going to start, dealing with that. So that's really cool. So Fly Away Home. My number 5 is First Wives Club, which was a great film. It was a film that I actually won passes to see it before it came out from a radio station. And I won the CD and a book and no t-shirt, just the book and the CD, of it. And little did I know that 2 years later, in 1998, I would be doing the same thing for the same radio station, doing movie premieres and giving out prizes. So pretty cool. First Wives Club is great. Diane Keaton, Bette Midler, Goldie Hawn, Maggie Smith, Dan Hedaya, Elizabeth Berkley, Victor Garber, I want to say Stephen David, the guy who played the dad in Seventh Heaven, is in that also. And a bunch of other really good cameos as well. Basically a bunch of first wives, wives who've been divorced, their husbands divorced them and have hooked up with younger women. They decide enough is enough, and they're going to turn the tables on their philandering husbands, and they come up with a plan. Bronson Pinchot's in it also. They come up with a plan to ruin their ex-husbands' lives. It's great. It's clever. It's fun. It's a great woman power, lady power movie. Number 4, Twister, I already talked about. Number 3, Scream, which set the bar for the late 1990s era of young actors in films. Like She's All That came out a couple years later, and 10 Things I Hate About You. And Scream itself also re-sparked the horror genre as well, because the horror genre had become stagnant during this time. And when Scream came along, directed by Wes Craven, and put it on its ass and turned on its ass and became a huge hit. And it came out in December, which is funny. Nev Campbell, David Arquette, Monica from Friends, Courtney Cox. I can't think of the other actor. Jamie Kennedy's one of them. Henry Winkler's in it. There's some other actors. Actually, I can't think of their names right now, top of my head. But it's a great idea for a horror film, because up to this point, everybody knows Freddy's and Jason's and Michael Myers and Leatherface and all that. So you have these supernatural serial killers who chop up and torture and stuff like that. And that was what horror was at that time. So what they did in this was instead they made the killer wear a disguise. In this case, it was a Halloween costume that mimicked the painting of the Scream. It's the white face and the black robe, and would use cell phones and creepy voices and stuff like that to threaten them and stuff like that. And then the killers would come in and they'd kill everybody. But you didn't know who the killer was. And that was what led to the success of the film, because now people were like, I got to figure out who the killer is. So you watch the movie and you're trying to figure out, okay, who's the killer? So they throw a lot of red herrings at you. They do other stuff as well. And then they do a lot of reverse psychology where you say, oh, look at that. It's too obvious this person is the killer. And then it turns out that that person is the killer. But so they do a little bit of that. So it became hugely popular. It spun off two more popular sequels, and then a fourth one, which wasn't as popular. It came out a few years after that. But it reignited the horror genre, and I will continue to declare that, and I loved it. So it was a great film. I'm not a big horror fan, and I saw that in the movie theater, and I loved it. Star Trek First Contact is my number 2. Probably the best Next Generation movie. Time travel, Borg, fun stuff, directed by Jonathan Frakes. The Next Generation crew have to go back in time to stop the Borg, who have also gone back in time to stop First Contact, so that Starfleet will never be invented. They can take over the Earth at an earlier time. And so the Next Generation crew goes back in time to stop them. And that's it. It's a big action film. And time travel and stuff like that's great. And then, of course, number one's ID4. I've got 3 minutes, so I really can't go down the line of all the movies that came out. But trust me, go to Wikipedia, type in 1996 in movies. There's some interesting films that came out. Let's see, I can do these real quick. Biodome, Bed of Roses, Black Sheep, Happy Gilmore, Mary Riley, Down Periscope, Up Close and Personal, The Birdcage, Sergeant Bilko, James and the Giant Peach, Celtic Pride, Truth About Cats and Dogs, Barbed Wire, The Craft, Flipper, Dragonheart, The Phantom, The Cable Guy, Striptease, Courage Under Fire, Harriet the Spy, A Time to Kill, which introduced Matthew McConaughey to the world, Kingpin, Matilda, Escape from L.A., which was a terrible sequel, by the way, Jack, which had Robin Williams as a young kid in a grown-up's body, which was kind of creepy, Mr. Science Theater 3000, the movie, where they took the TV show and actually watched a bad movie on the big screen and did their snarky comments. Swingers, Trainspotting, While We Were Kings, or When We Were Kings. Romeo and Juliet, which brought Leo DiCaprio into prominence before his big hit in Titanic, but him and Claire Danes in that one. The Fan, which is a terrible movie with Richard Dreyfuss and Wesley Snipes. Larger Than Life, Tin Cup, Space Jam, I did that one. Mirror Has Two Faces, Bordello of Blood, English Patient, Island of Dr. Moreau, which is considered to be one of the worst movies of all time. Jingle All the Way, Arnold Schwarzenegger in a Christmas comedy, a very Brady sequel. The Crow, City of Angels, terrible sequel. Sling Blade, great film. Daylight, 2 Days in the Valley, which is Charlize Theron's introduction to the world as well. Preacher's Wife, Denzel Washington remade with Whitney Houston, a Christmas movie. Extreme Measures. Bound, which is a great movie about lesbians and directed by the Wachowskis. The Ghost in the Darkness, Val Kilmer, Michael Douglas hunting killer tigers. Evita, Long Kiss Goodnight, People vs. Larry Flint, The Chamber, Big Night, Michael Collins, Bottle Rocket, which is Wes Anderson's first film. Get on the Bus, Spike Lee's version of the Million Man March. Sleepers, Crash, Hamlet, the Kenneth Branagh 4-hour extravaganza, which I saw in the movie theater and fell asleep in halfway through. High School High, which is a great parody film about those high school films with John Lovitz, great film. Thinner, which is a great Stephen King book, and She's the One are just some of the movies that came out in 1996. All right, I'm going to a little bit go over today, but that's all right. 1996 in television. Speed Vision started. Speed Vision no longer exists, but it was a channel devoted to NASCAR and other racing sports, so it was good around that time. The glowing puck during hockey games on Fox. You can now see where the puck is going, because it's kind of hard when you're watching hockey to see where the puck is. I don't even know if they still do that anymore. The Dish Network begins. TV Land begins. The final episode of Murder, She Wrote. The Sundance Channel debuts. Major League Baseball on Fox debuts. The first HDTV came out around this time. MTV2 came out when MTV still played videos. Animal Planet and Discovery Civilization and Discovery Science all came out this year. Fox News, we already talked about that. We don't want to talk about it anymore. ESPN News came out this year also. And the 25 Days of Christmas on the Family Channel, which is now Slingshot or Forefront or whatever you want to call it, is out there now. Doctor Who was in a 2-hour movie. They tried to bring him back to America and reboot Doctor Who in 1996 before 2004's reboot was successful. This was an American one on Fox. And the Eighth Doctor, even though this is the only movie he did, they never went to series with it. He's still considered the Eighth Doctor, and he's still within the Doctor Who mythos. So a lot of people like that. New shows that started in 1996 that were fairly popular: Third Rock from the Sun. Space Cases, which is not that popular, but I found it was a great film, a great TV show on Nickelodeon. Peter David, one of my favorite comic book writers, wrote this sci-fi show with Bill Mummy, I think, from Lost in Space. And I wish I could find it on video because it was a lot of fun. It was about it was basically Voyager, Star Trek Voyager, but with a bunch of kids and one grown-up. The kids are running a spaceship, and the spaceship gets sent to the other side of the galaxy, and they only have the one grown up, and they have to pilot themselves back while facing evil and bad guys. It was a really good sci-fi film series, and I wish it would come back out and we could watch it on video and DVD again. Nash Bridges, Prophet, which is an underrated TV show, only lasted one season, but was still fantastic. Forensic Files, Dexter's Laboratory, Rosie O'Donnell Show, Seventh Heaven, Arthur, Superman animated series, Blue's Clues, Everybody Loves Raymond, Judge Judy, Spin City. I don't know what that is, so I'm going to skip that. Dark Skies. Oh, Suddenly Susan, Dark Skies, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, The O'Reilly Factor. Ugh. Millennium, which was Chris Carter's spinoff of X-Files. Not really a spinoff, but lasted 3 seasons. The second season is one of the best TV seasons you're ever going to see, and I'll talk about that when I do my best TV season show down the line. Pop-Up Video, which is great, and True Hollywood Story was great also. Last episodes of The Commish: Are You Afraid of the Dark, Murder, She Wrote, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Dream On, which is a great HBO sitcom I talked about earlier, a couple weeks ago. Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, that season finale. Space Above and Beyond, which is a great show on Fox. Sequest DSV, another really good show from Steven Spielberg. Picket Fences ended also. I don't know what that one is, so I'm going to skip that one. American Gothic, which is a great series. Tales from the Crypt on HBO ended. Reno 911, or not Reno, Rescue 911, and the John Larroquette Show, which is a really great show as well, ended in 1996 as well. 1996 in music. Oh, this is fine. I didn't know about this. Jamaican security agents opened fire on Jimmy Buffett's airplane with Bono inside because they thought it was a drug dealing plane. Nobody hurt and the plane didn't crash, but still they opened fire on a plane that had Jimmy Buffett and Bono in it, and they thought they were drug dealers. That's funny. Lisa Marie Presley files for divorce from Michael Jackson. Surprise. Kiss reunited in full makeup at the American Music Awards, and they went out on tour, I think, in full makeup after a little while. MC Hammer filed for bankruptcy in 96. A 17-year-old fan of Smashing Pumpkins was crushed to death at a concert in Dublin, Ireland. Sammy Hagar left Van Halen, and the Spice Girls debuted. Just real quick, some albums that came out in 1996 worth noting. Bad Hair Day from Weird Al. MMMBop from Hanson. Beatles Anthology 2 and 3. So they released a lot of Beatles. They also released the first new Beatles album or songs this year also. Bringing Down Bringing Down the Horse. That's what it was. Bringing Down the Horse from the Wallflowers, which is Bob Dylan's son, Jacob Dylan. Jennifer Love Hewitt, self-titled album, Jennifer Love Hewitt. Factory Showroom from They Might Be Giants, which isn't one of their better ones, but still They Might Be Giants. Among My Swan, Mazzy Star's fantastic album. It's one that a lot of people don't know about, and I really highly recommend. It doesn't have Fade Into You. That was from her first album. This is her third album, and it's better than her first album. The Ruddles, who are a parody Beatles band, they released Archaeology, which was a parody of the Beatles anthologies coming out. Spice Girls' first album came out. But of course, I got to talk about my boys, REM, my favorite band of all time. They released their last album as the full REM group. Afterwards, Bill Berry, I think it was Bill Berry. Yeah, Bill Berry left the band after this album. They did this album, New Adventures in Hi-Fi. They recorded it on the road when they were doing the massive Monster tour, which lasted a year and a half. And they recorded the album on the road. And it is a very underrated album. It is fantastic. And highly recommend it. Everybody checks it out. New Adventures in Hi-Fi. Fantastic. Some of the singles that were popular. Amish Paradise from Weird Al's Bad Hair Day. Duncan Sheik's song, Barely Breathing. I am barely breathing. Duncan Sheik, that came out in 96. Breakfast at Tiffany's, which is a great song from a one-hit wonder, Deep Blue Something. Change the World by Clapton. Champagne Supernova and Wonderwall by Oasis both came out in 96. Sixth Avenue Heartache and One Headlight from Wallflowers both came out in 96. Crash Into You by Dave Matthews Band. Don't Speak by No Doubt. Ebo the Letter, which is REM's first single from New Adventures in Hi-Fi with Patti Smythe. Every Day is a Winding Road. Sheryl Crow, another one of hers, came out this year also. Free as a Bird and the other new Beatles song came out. They used Lennon's demo, and then the remaining Beatles, Harrison, McCartney, and Ringo, added their own to it and released it as a single. Went to number one, of course. Interstate Love Song by Stone Temple Pilots. The Macarena, which is why I played it, and Stupid Girl by Garbage. And I think that is it. In comics, real quick, the only thing I could find was Marvel vs. DC came out in 96, and that created Amalgam Comics, which for a month they combined a Marvel and a DC character into one character, like Bat Wolverine and Captain Superman, stuff like that. And they had adventures, stuff like that. Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, some crazy weird stuff like that. So on that note, I think that is it. I want to see if I can find one of the songs from REM's Wake Up Bomb from REM's New Adventures in Hi-Fi, which is a great yeah, there it is, Wake Up Bomb. This is from, do we have the official REM version of it? This is close enough. This is Wake Up Bomb. It was the first, the second song on it, but it's one of those that gets you into the motion. New Adventures Hi-Fi is one of these really fun, action-packed, opposite kind of their popular stuff. I'm trying to get to the one part I want to get before but it's a great album. I highly recommend it. It's underrated. It's coming up now, I think. The part I really, really like here. Can you turn up as high as it can go? Yeah. Now, on that note, it's another episode of Dylan Knows is coming to an end. 9 minutes over when I should be. And hopefully this won't get scrubbed by YouTube. Please don't scrub this. It's Wake Up Bomb by REM. And enjoy yourselves. I'll see you all next week.